Hello students, today we are going to start with the new chapter which is chemical coordination and integration. So in the previous chapter, which is neural control and coordination, we discussed about the function of your nervous system. Okay, so the nervous system actually works with another system which is very important in your body, that is your endocrine system. Okay, and this endocrine system is the part of this chapter which is chemical coordination and its integration. Now when both these systems works together, they form a system which is called as the neuroendocrine system. So the very first thing that we need to discuss in this chapter is about the endocrine glands. Okay, so these are the endocrine glands. When I want to define this gland, just look at the term. Okay, this term has two words which is endo, and then there is a term which is crine. Okay, endo means within. When I say endo, that means within. And crine has come from a word which is kinin. Now we shall compare two glands. We all have heard of two types of glands. One is the exocrine glands and the other is the endocrine glands. When I define the endocrine glands are what? The endocrine glands are the ductless glands. Whereas when I talk about the exocrine glands are the glands that are provided with the ducts. Now when I say it is ductless, so where is their secretion going and how is their secretion pouring into any medium? When I am defining the endocrine glands, I am saying that they pour their secretion without any duct and their secretion will be directly going into the bloodstream. That's the definition. Okay, they pour their secretion directly into the bloodstream. Now again there is a term which says secretion. What is the secretion of the endocrine glands? That's why I have underlined this term. Now this secretion is actually the hormones, and the hormones of different glands are a part of this chapter which we will be talking later. Now let us define what are these hormones. Very important definition. This is the exact definition which is given in the NCERT. These are the non-nutrient chemicals. These are the non-nutrient chemicals. Now these chemicals means, can you see the term in the chapter? Chemicals are the hormones. These are the non-nutrient chemicals. Non-nutrient means they are never going to provide you with energy. Pay attention to this thing. Non-nutrient means they will never provide you with any kind of energy. And these non-nutrient chemicals actually act as intercellular messengers. How they act? They act as intercellular messenger. They will act between the cells. So hormones were the chemicals produced by the endocrine glands. Now let us look at some of the other properties of the hormones. The very first property is very important. Now students, I have written that hormones are required in trace amounts. Just focus on this term, trace amount. This is very important. What do you mean by trace amount? When you say trace amount, that means they are required in very small quantity. Alright, that is a very important property regarding the hormones. Now they usually act at a distance. When I define the hormones, we say that hormones usually act at a distance, at a further distance. Their action usually lasts longer. Now this point is again very important. Their action lasts for a very longer duration of time. Clear with the properties of hormone? Now let us move to the next topic, which is the nature of the hormones. Now students, nature of the hormone is again a very important topic regarding NEET. And also let me just tell you, you need to remember the nature of the hormones if you want to understand the mechanism of hormone action. Why am I saying this? Is because when you need to understand the mechanism of hormone action, you will need to understand whether the hormones are soluble in water or they are not soluble in water. That means, students, I am talking about the two broad categories of the hormones, which is number one, the water soluble hormones, and the other one is the lipid soluble hormones. Now, I have written some of the properties of the water soluble hormones and some of the properties of the lipid soluble hormones. Let us first look at some of the properties of the water soluble hormones. Now, when I am saying it's water soluble, that means simply, students, very easy, that the hormones which are soluble in water. And when I am saying it's soluble in water, that means it is insoluble in lipid. That's what I have written. These are soluble in water. But there is one more important point. Since they are soluble in water, so they are found freely in the plasma. Where they are found? They are found freely in the plasma. Now, whether they are water soluble or they are lipid soluble, they will require some receptors for their action. Now, what receptors do they require? These water soluble hormones require the receptors which are called as extracellular receptors. Now, star mark this point. They require extracellular receptors. Now, this part we are going to discuss in the later stages of the chapter, okay? These extracellular receptors are also called as membrane-bound receptors. Clear? Now, moving on to the next part. These are the lipid-soluble hormones. Now, when I am saying lipid-soluble hormones, that means the hormones which are soluble in lipid, but they are not soluble in water. Correct? So, these are soluble in lipid. Now, just compare both of these. When I said it's a water-soluble hormone, it was found freely in the plasma. But look at this. When you define lipid-soluble hormones, they are found bound state with the plasma proteins. Why? Because they are not soluble in water. So, how they are present? They are present in bound state with plasma proteins. Now, do they require any receptor? Whatever the hormone is, they will always require a receptor, but there is a difference. When I am saying it's a water soluble hormone, they require a membrane bound receptor. But when I am saying it's a lipid soluble hormone, just pay attention, very important. The receptor that they require is called as the nuclear receptors. So finally, let's conclude what were the water-soluble hormones and what were the lipid-soluble hormones. The water-soluble hormones were the hormones that were soluble in water and they were found freely in the plasma, whereas the lipid-soluble hormones were soluble in lipid, insoluble in water, and they were found bound with the plasma proteins. The receptors required for the action of the water-soluble hormones were the membrane-bound receptors, which are also called as extracellular receptors, whereas the receptors required for the lipid-soluble hormones were the nuclear receptors. Now, students, let's move on again to the very important part, which is the examples of these hormones. Let us look at the examples of the water-soluble hormones first. So, I have written in three parts: protein hormones, the peptide hormones, and the amino hormones. Now, when I say protein hormones and when I say peptide hormones, both are formed of amino acids. But when I say protein hormones, they are made up of amino acid, which is approximately 50 to 200. Alright, when I say peptide hormones, it is approximately 3 to 49 amino acids. I have written one example of the protein hormone. Alright, although there are more examples that we are going to discuss later. One of the example, very common example I have written, that is insulin. Now, how the questions can be framed from this part, students? Now, if the question is, insulin is going to act, listen carefully, insulin is going to act via which kind of receptor? Is it the membrane bound receptor or is it the nuclear receptor? So very clearly, since insulin is a water soluble hormone, it is definitely going to act via the membrane bound receptor. Right? Now the last example is the amino hormones, and I have written one example of the amino hormone, which is epinephrine. Sometimes we also say that the amino hormones are the amino acid derivative hormones. They are derived from the amino acids. For example, when I say epinephrine, that is a hormone which is derived from tyrosine. Clear with the examples of the water soluble hormones. Now let us see the examples of the lipid soluble hormones. So I have written the example steroids. Steroids are the example of lipid soluble hormones. Steroids like that from the testis. Steroids like that from the ovaries. That means the hormones of gonads. Whether you say estrogen, which is clearly a female hormone, or I say testosterone, which is clearly a male hormone, they are the example of the steroids. Or students, again this is very important, that is the hormone of adrenal cortex, that is cortisol. And now, can you see the comparison? This is the hormone of adrenal cortex. But look at this example. This is the example of adrenal medulla. That means the medullary hormones were the water-soluble hormones, whereas the cortex hormones were the lipid-soluble hormones. Now let's move ahead in this chapter and begin with the endocrine glands. And the very first endocrine gland, which is very important in our body, is the hypothalamus. Now I've made this diagram, students. This diagram is given in NCERT. So this becomes very important. In this diagram, not only you can see the hypothalamus, but also you can see the other gland, which is the next gland, the pituitary gland. And we are going to see how your hypothalamus is connected with the pituitary gland. Now let us focus on the diagram. This diagram shows that your hypothalamus, which is this part, is connected with the pituitary. Pituitary, students, we will discuss later, has got two parts. One is the posterior pituitary, this one, and the other one is the anterior pituitary, which is this part. Now there is a stalk like this which connects your hypothalamus. So hypothalamus here is connected with this stalk with the pituitary, which is present below. This stalk is this one. So I have written here about in the hypothalamus that the stalk which connects the hypothalamus with the pituitary gland is called as infundibulum. I'll show it later, okay? There are certain neurons which is responsible for secreting the hormone, the hypothalamic hormones. I have shown some neurons with blue color. These neurons, or they are called as the neurosecretory cells. Now some neurons like this one is directly connected with the posterior pituitary. But some of the neurons are actually pouring, like this one, is pouring its secretion into some circulation. Can you see this circulation with the red chalk? So this circulation is called as the portal circulation. Students, we know that humans have got portal circulations, which is two type of portal circulation. One we already study in the chapter body fluids in circulation. That is the hepatic portal circulation. And this portal circulation that is shown in this diagram is called as the hypophyseal portal circulation. So actually, most of the hormones of hypothalamus are going into your anterior pituitary, are acting on your anterior pituitary with the help of these portal circulation. But some hormones are directly going into the posterior pituitary, and actually they are stored at the axon terminal of this neuron. They are stored where? In the axon terminal of these neuron, and those axon terminals where the hormones are stored are actually called as the Hering's body. They are called as the Hering body. So in the Hering body, we will see there are two hormones, oxytocin and vasopressin, which is stored. Now let us see some of the properties of the hypothalamus. So the very first point that I have written is that it's a connection between the neural, and the endocrine system. Because we have already studied in the neural control and coordination about the nervous function of the hypothalamus. And here we are going to see the endocrine function of the hypothalamus. So definitely that's a connection between both the systems. Now, it's a very important point. What I have written is that hypothalamus is called as the master of master gland. Why is it called as the master of master gland? Now, you need to know which is the master gland. So, students, the master gland is your pituitary, and the hypothalamic hormones acts upon this master gland so that all the hormones of this master gland pituitary can release. So, the hormones of pituitary are not going to be released or not going to be inhibited. In a way, I can say that hypothalamus controls the pituitary, which is why it is called as master of master gland. This point we have already discussed in this diagram, that it consists of certain neurons which actually releases hormones, and they are also called as the neurosecretory cells. Now students, this point also I told that there is a connection, there is a stalk. This stalk you can see in the diagram, this stalk which connects your hypothalamus with the pituitary is called as infundibulum. Now star mark this point. In need they might ask, there is a probability that they might ask that what is the stalk which is connecting both the glands. So that stalk is called as infundibulum. Now when we are talking about glands, surely we will be talking about their hormones, and very easy to remember the hormones of hypothalamus and the pituitary, because both are related. When I say the hormones of hypothalamus, they are of two types. They are of two types usually. They are either releasing types or they are inhibiting type. They are either releasing type or they are inhibiting type. So we are going to discuss the different types of hypothalamic hormones. Now let us discuss the different types of hormones of hypothalamus. So I have made these columns. In the first column I have written the name of the hormone. In the second column I have written the target, and in the third column I have written the function of all the hormones. So I told you the hormones are of two types. One is the releasing type and other is the inhibiting type. Let us start with the very first hormone. Now the very first hormone is GHRH, which means growth hormone releasing hormone. But once I say it's simply GH, if I say GH, which is growth hormone, student, that is the hormone of anterior pituitary. But once I say growth hormone releasing hormone, that becomes the hormone of hypothalamus. Also, very important to note here is the other name of the growth hormone, releasing hormone. Very, very important. They might ask in NEET that what is somatocrinin? Students, somatokinin is the other name of growth hormone releasing hormone. Now, what is the target? Target of all the hypothalamic hormones is anterior pituitary itself. As I said, that hypothalamus is master of master gland. So it has a control over the master gland, which is the pituitary gland. So the target is definitely the pituitary. I will discuss later in this chapter that posterior pituitary has no hormone of its own. That means all the hormones which will be released from anterior pituitary or inhibited from release from the interior pituitary will be controlled by hypothalamus. So the growth hormone releasing hormone target is anterior pituitary, and student function is very easy. You can just look at the name, releasing hormone. So when it acts upon the anterior pituitary, it stimulates the release of growth hormone. It promotes the release of growth hormone. Now the inhibitory type of the growth hormone. The other hormone is growth hormone inhibiting hormone. The growth hormone releasing hormone was called as somatokinin, but the growth hormone inhibiting hormone is called as somatostatin. Target is, students, again the same, anterior pituitary, and when it acts upon the anterior pituitary, definitely it is going to inhibit the release of growth hormone. Moving on to the next hormone is MSHRH. Short, you can say MRH, melanocyte stimulating hormone releasing hormone. The target is again the same, anterior pituitary. And students, definitely when it acts upon the anterior pituitary, since it is releasing type, it acts upon the anterior pituitary and it stimulates the release of MSH. Now the inhibitory type. The other hormone is MSH-IH, or in short you say MIH, melanocyte stimulating hormone inhibiting hormone. Target is again same, anterior pituitary, and since it is inhibitory type, so when it acts upon anterior pituitary, it is definitely going to inhibit the release of melanocyte stimulating hormone. Moving on to the next hormone is PRLRH, or in short you say PRH. But when I use the term PRL, this also has R, but the R of PRL does not mean the releasing type. So it becomes very, very important when I only say PRL, that stands for prolactin, and prolactin, student, is the hormone of anterior pituitary. But when I say PRLRH, that is prolactin releasing hormone, that's the hormone of hypothalamus. The target is again the same, which is anterior pituitary. And since it is releasing type, so once it is acting upon the anterior pituitary, it is definitely going to stimulate the release of prolactin. So it is acting upon anterior pituitary and it promotes the release of prolactin. So the again releasing type is done, so the other type will be the inhibiting type. The next hormone is PRLIH, or in short you say PIH. So prolactin inhibiting hormone. Now there is another name of this PIH. So you also say the other name of PIH is dopamine. Target is again the same, anterior pituitary. And since it is inhibitory form of the hormone, when it acts upon anterior pituitary, it inhibits the release of prolactin. Last two hormone, students, it is only having the releasing type. Listen to me carefully, it is only having the releasing type, it is not having any inhibitory form. The first hormone having only releasing type is mentioned as TSHRH, or in short you say TRH, that is thyrotrophin releasing hormone. Thyrotrophin releasing hormone. The target will be again anterior pituitary, and when it acts upon the anterior pituitary, since it is releasing type, so definitely it is going to promote the release of TSH. TSH means thyrotrophin or thyroid stimulating hormone. So when your TSH-RH or your simply TRH acts upon anterior pituitary, it promotes the release of TSH. The last hormone is CRH or ACTH-RH, that is corticotrophin releasing hormone, or ACTH stands for adrenocorticotrophic hormone. Adrenocorticotrophic hormone. This is the hormone of anterior pituitary. But when I say ACTH-RH, that becomes the hormone of hypothalamus. When it acts upon the target, which is same, anterior pituitary, it acts upon the anterior pituitary to promote the release of ACTH. That is, it promotes the release of adrenocorticotrophic hormone. So students, we discussed about all the hormones of hypothalamus today, but there are two hormones that we will be discussing in the next class, which is the oxytocin and vasopressin. Oxytocin and vasopressin, which is stored in the posterior pituitary. So today we only discussed about the hormones of hypothalamus. Tomorrow we are going to start with the next gland, which is the master gland, the pituitary gland. Thank you all of you. Take care and bye-bye.